Namaskar, viewers and listeners of the Great Game Reloaded. I am Tilak Devasher. Like me, I'm sure you must have wondered why Pakistan keeps returning to the IMF again and again, begging for bailouts. 25 times, in fact, since 1958. More than almost any other country in the world. Its friends like China, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE are now embarrassed at the times Pakistan seeks doles. Taking a cue from the country, thousands of Pakistani beggars have made their way to the Gulf countries to beg. Many countries have now become more restrictive in issuing visas to guard against Pakistani beggars. Now the IMF itself has resolved this mystery through a report titled Governance and Corruption Diagnostic Assessment, GCDA. It explains in black and white how corruption and bad governance have damaged Pakistan's economy and why the country keeps running back to the IMF again and again. Pakistan tried hard to bury this report. The IMF had to force the government to release it as a precondition for the IMF Executive Board's approval of a US dollars 1.2 billion disbursement next month. Imagine, Pakistan did not want to publish the report about its own economy and governance structures. It wanted to hide the facts from the people. Let's break this down simply. First, what did the report find? The IMF says corruption in Pakistan is everywhere, built into the system, affecting almost every government department, stopping the country from growing. It called corruption in Pakistan, quote unquote, persistent and widespread, that Pakistan's economy is controlled by a small group of powerful people who shape rules to benefit themselves. This is what economists call elite capture, a system where decisions are made not for public interest, but for the narrow benefit of those who command political and economic power. As a result, public money gets wasted, stolen, or misused, and ordinary people pay the price. Thus, corruption is not merely a problem, but a defining feature of governance. Let me repeat that. Corruption is not merely a problem, but a defining feature of governance. That is the core of the problem. The IMF goes further and quantifies the economic cost of corruption. It holds that if Pakistan controlled corruption and improved governance, the economy could grow 5 to 6.5% more in just 5 years. Imagine, Pakistan's economy could grow by 5 to 6.5%. That's huge. The scale of the corruption can be gleaned from the fact that the report also says Pakistan recovered Pakistani rupees 5.3 trillion worth of corruption-linked assets in just 2 years. Imagine the money that is not recovered. This number is important. It tells you how much money leaks out of the state every year, every month, every transaction. That is why Pakistan ends up at the IMF, because the system is built to lose money, not manage it. Corruption isn't one problem among many. It is the main reason Pakistan cannot stand on its own feet. A linked issue is why Pakistan can't collect enough tax. And the simple answer is that the system is designed to be confusing so people can cheat. The IMF calls Pakistan's tax framework, quote, excessively complex, opaque, and vulnerable to corruption, unquote. It describes it as too complicated, full of loopholes, full of special exemptions, easy for powerful groups to manipulate. Because the tax system is so messy, Pakistan collects only 10% of its GDP in taxes, one of the lowest rates in the world. So what does Pakistan do? It borrows. And when it can't pay back what it borrows, it goes to the IMF again and again. Then, the judicial system is the backbone of any economy. The IMF describes Pakistan's judiciary as too slow, fragmented, overburdened, lacking integrity, unable to enforce contracts or protect property rights. If a business can't trust the courts, it won't invest. When courts cannot enforce contracts, the economy cannot function. If property rights aren't protected, the economy won't grow. Most importantly, judicial dysfunction derails every anti-corruption case. If big cases drag on for years, corruption goes unpunished. When courts cannot punish corruption, the system decays. Slow courts weaken the economy, and Pakistan ends up needing IMF loans to stay afloat. Pakistan has a plethora of anti-corruption agencies. At the federal level, there is a National Accountability Bureau and the Federal Investigation Agency. And then there are provincial anti-corruption bodies. On paper, they look strong, but the IMF says they are politically influenced, poorly coordinated, underfunded, slow to investigate. The IMF even calls NAB, quote unquote, a political compromise. In provinces, anti-corruption officers must get political approval before investigating powerful people. This means corruption involving influential groups rarely gets investigated, let alone punished. When corruption goes unpunished, it grows. When it grows, Pakistan's economy breaks. And when it breaks, Pakistan returns to, you guessed it, the IMF. Pakistan has several asset declaration systems to check corruption. One for civil servants, one for politicians, one for judges, one for the military. Most are secret, not public. Even NAB's own officials keep their declarations private. So the system basically is, tell us your assets, but we won't check them and we won't show them to anyone. That's not transparency. And without transparency, corruption thrives. Then the IMF report warns that Pakistan still faces serious money laundering risks even after exiting the Financial Action Task Force FATF grey list. The country was first placed on the grey list in 2008 for its role in financing extremist groups, and since then has faced repeated scrutiny for failing to curb terror funding and money laundering. These lapses are closely tied to its long-standing practice of supporting cross-border terrorism, particularly directed against India. The IMF identifies high-risk sectors like banking, real estate, construction, public procurement, politically exposed persons in this regard. The report says enforcement is weak because investigations move too slowly, agencies don't share information, penalties are selective, politically connected people are often protected. NAB, for example, takes 4 months just to start a money laundering inquiry, and many cases never go anywhere. When corrupt money moves freely and no agency can stop it, Pakistan becomes financially unstable, and once again, it needs IMF support. Poor governance is also evident in the management of state-owned enterprises, or SOEs, in aviation, energy, railways, and more that lose huge amounts of money. Why? Political appointments, mismanagement, no accountability, corruption, unfair contracts. These companies drain billions of rupees. To keep them alive, the government borrows. When borrowing becomes too much, Pakistan goes to the IMF. Another example is Pakistan's budgeting that the IMF describes as being full of holes. The government overspends, it changes budgets mid-year, procurement is not transparent, money is spent without proper approval, big projects are poorly managed. Put simply, Pakistan spends money it doesn't have, repeatedly. So it borrows, debt builds, reserves fall, IMF steps in. This has happened 25 times. To sum up, here are 6 easy to understand reasons why Pakistan keeps begging. 1. Pakistan doesn't collect enough taxes because of corruption and loopholes. 2. The government spends more than it earns, year after year, crisis after crisis. 3. Exports are low, imports are high. Pakistan doesn't earn enough dollars. 4. Policies keep changing with every government. No stability means no investment. 5. Corruption drains money constantly. Pak rupees 5.3 trillion was recovered in just 2 years. Imagine what wasn't recovered. And 6. Institutions are weak, courts are slow, anti-corruption agencies are political, regulators lack power. Put together, this creates a cycle. Corruption, weak economy, borrowing, crisis, IMF. Finally, the IMF identifies the biggest threat to Pakistan being its young population. More than 60% of Pakistanis are under 30. They are online, vocal, and fed up. The IMF says this young population is less tolerant of corruption, more demanding of accountability, frustrated with poor services. Youth unemployment is rising, opportunity is shrinking, trust in institutions is failing. This is Pakistan's demographic time bomb. If young people lose faith in the system, and they already have, social pressure and instability will grow. If governance does not improve, this generation will not wait quietly. This is the time bomb beneath Pakistan's political system, not years from now, today. They have examples of the Gen Z agitations in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Nepal in the neighborhood that brought governments down. The real question, will anything change? The IMF has exposed Pakistan's core issue. The problem isn't the economy. It is the system running the economy and its direct consequence of corruption. Until corruption in all its manifestations is controlled, Pakistan will keep returning to the IMF again and again, trapped in the same cycle. Not because of outside forces, but because its internal governance is broken. Pakistan thus stands at a crossroads. It can keep repeating the cycle of corruption, crisis, bailout, or it can rebuild its institutions. For now, the IMF has shown the mirror. What Pakistan decides to do with that reflection will be the real story. Given its track record, it's not hard to guess that Pakistan is unlikely to undertake major restructuring. It has got too used to begging to getting bailouts. I am Tilak Devasher. Thank you for watching. Do like, share and comment. Namaskar and Jai Hind.